listen to that later. Cool, man. How's your day going?
Day is going great, man. Had an interview for an opportunity. Hit the gym this morning. So yeah, man, you're catching me at my best.
Love it.
Yeah, man. How about you? How you feeling?
Yeah, the day's good, man. I uh I got a lot going on today. Um so last night, it's this young boy at my gym, man. He's gonna be a really big boy when he gets my age. I think he's like 13, but he's already bigger than me. We was in jits class. And so we was practicing the single arm choke where you get under the arm and you basically anchor the other
Yeah,
hand like that. And he I was behind him basically. And then I put my hand on the ground to kind of like position myself better. And then he didn't do it on purpose, but he put his knee on top of my finger. So like you see the difference, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So and I'm right handed. So it's like it even like I had to like gently touch the thank God that my fingerprint works on my Mac. And I don't have to press it that hard. I was like, yo, and like when I was doing push-ups, I had to extend this finger up. So I basically had to do it from here to here. And yeah, man, I just made the decision. I'm like, yeah, I'm not go to class the rest of the week. And I'm like,
Let it recover.
yeah, but the funny thing is just like growing up, you hear athletes catching injuries with their finger, you like, man, they soft. And it's like, nah, them fingers and toes, man.
Yeah.
Them fingers and
But hey,
toes.
man, this is why we train,
Yeah, and
right?
that's
Because when your life is on the line and you need to defend yourself, you
yeah,
want to have been tested.
right, right. And so I did that in JITS class and
Hmm.
and I went to the second class. I didn't want to go, but I'm like, nah, I gotta thug it out. You know what I'm saying? And I had to modify a lot of stuff. So I couldn't do a lot of stuff in the class. But like you said, it's that mental toughness because there may be a situation, not saying that I don't want it to happen, where, you know, I may have to fight for my life with an injury. You know what I'm saying? And what you're gonna do, you ain't gonna always feel good while you're doing it. Um,
Precisely.
I couldn't even put on my glove. Like I had my
Jeez.
hand wraps on, I couldn't even put the glove on. I was like, ah. So it was very much so a learning experience.
You
Yeah, bro. I got these, life goals don't wait for nobody.
keep keep that faith, stay on that frequency, man.
You got to, man.
It's no mistake that you're closing a deal and that your Daryl was put into your life and that you changed, right?
Mhm.
Like these are all, yeah. More and more I mature, I recognize, yeah, your attitude drives I mean, yeah, not even to get too woo woo, but like we're energetic beings. Like if you woe it's me and down and damn the job market, like, and even just saying like I've even in the past year like watch my language about stuff because I'm
Mhm.
like you can speak stuff
Into existence.
into existence, bro. You really can. I've seen it happen. Um, yeah, I got enough evidence to support it. So yeah, that's kind of I had a similar transition in December.
Mm.
Change my attitude, and I have 3 opportunities in talks with. Um, but yeah, that it came almost immediately after an attitude change and a resume update.
Mhm.
Like it
Mhm.
happened so fast.
Yeah.
So, congrats, bro. I hope you get that. And like I said, if you don't, whatever is for you will be for you.
Something gonna shake.
Something gonna shake, man.
Something gonna shake, man.
And if it ain't for you, it's not for you. We are
Exactly.
also protected by a divine power, and sometimes we don't get stuff because we're being protected. That's
Yeah.
also the it's also something I've adopted.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm doing the past 2 years, I've been doing a jar like January where I just fast from like things that I feel like, I like to like I'm fasting from alcohol. Um and it's like it's crazy how it heightens your focusness, you know what I'm saying? Um and getting back on like really my workout routine. And I think I was probably up to about 200. Now I'm down to like 189. And my goal
Hell
weight now
yeah.
is like 185, so um the fast is, and the thing is fasting isn't hard actually. It's like once you make your mind up, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so much of life is, and especially things that we wanna change or have, is identity based. Like, when you become and commit to, like, "Yeah, I'm not a person who drinks." Like, then it's not, "Should I drink or should I not?" It's like, I made a decision that, you know, I wanna have more clarity in my life, and I'm not a person who drinks, and maybe this will just last for a season, but or whatever, but yeah, setting goals and thinking about, like, who is the person you gotta be to have that goal, I think is, like,
Mhm.
really powerful.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk about, and we'll we'll talk about this later, and I'm probably gonna edit out a lot of this pre-talk. Some of it Imma keep
Yeah,
because
that's all
what you
good.
said
I
is like a
figure.
great one-liner. Because we ain't catch up. So, um, you gotta be prepared for your blessings, man. Like, a lot of people
Mhm.
we want a lot of things, and we deserve everything we want and can get, but are we actually prepared to receive those? Are we willing to do the work to actually get it? Because if you're not really doing the work, do you really deserve it? You know? So it's like I look at it as that too. Like, I gotta, open myself up for these opportunities, so
Yeah. And I would add to that, the preparation is, in the preparation, that's also not always necessarily speeding up, but that's also helping you cultivate and bring in the thing that you wanna attract. Like, yes, you need to be prepared for it, but through the preparation is how you start to attract some of those things as well. Whether it be,
Mhm.
taking care of your body, whether it be, because yeah, maybe you've now committed to taking care of your body and you meet somebody in the gym who can help you close a deal, right?
Yeah.
And all through trying to honor your temple and trying to do what you need to do to be who you need to be, to have the things you need to have, right? We often get it backwards. We often
Mhm.
say have, do, be. Like, I want to have these things so I can do these things, and doing these things and having these things will make me be and feel a certain way. And it's like, no, be the person that's capable of doing the thing so that you can have the thing. And at the end of the day, what I realize more and more, especially 2025, is like, um, there's a big difference between goals and dreams. And I feel like far too often I was only focused on goals. And at the end of the day, we want to achieve goals because we think they'll make us feel a certain way. So why not just skip the line and say, how do I want to feel? And who do I need to be in order to feel? What skills do I need to have in order to feel that way? What experience do I want to have to feel these feelings? Um, yeah, it sounds so simple, and it is, but it's uh it's just shifting what you believe about certain things,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's get into it, man. Um, yeah, what's up, world? My name is Corey Stay Trapping. This is Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And today, I think we're going to be talking about shifting energies. I think that was a perfect segue into what we're doing. And today, I have the honor and privilege of interviewing my guy, Anthony Holloway. We met in the Bay Area. One of the few people I feel like I still keep in contact with. He went to Hawaii, and now he's throwing fire. He's I don't know, maybe he was maybe you were Polynesian or something, or Samoan back,
Former life.
in your blood, in a former life or in your
Yeah.
bloodline. Um but yeah, one of the things I love about Anthony, he's always had this calm demeanor, very assured of himself. And just to give you a little rundown on his background, and I think, you know, talking with talking with you today, I think it'd be really good because it fits what I think a lot of people need today, right? A lot of people in the job market have been in the job market. One of my former coworkers uh wrote a post saying that he's been on the search for a year now, right? Which is crazy. Um so Anthony, he's the founder of Hustle Different, which is basically he serves as a fractional head of talent and people operations expert. Was formerly the senior manager, uh, talent acquisition and people at Wobot. Is that how you pronounce it?
Correct,
Yeah,
sir.
Wobot Health. I remember I used to get it wrong, get it wrong a lot. And actually was the founding recruiter, which is very important, right? So we're definitely going to touch on what it's like, from going from recruiting one person or less than five to now you're running recruiting programs when you're going after 10 or more, 20 or whatever, right? He's also been or is a social innovation fellow, or was formerly of Starting Block, and was the head of recruiting partnerships at Outco Inc. So I kind of wanted to just touch on those top main areas just to give people a background on, again, why I mentioned recruiting and things of that sort. Why I think it's really a good time for us to do this now. Did I miss anything? Is there anything you wanna add to it?
The one thing that I would add is my introduction into technology, and I think we'll naturally segue with some of the questions. Shout out to you for preparing and being really thoughtful about some of the topics and things we want to touch on. But prior to Outco, I was at Dev Boot Camp as a career coach. So that was a coding boot camp for non-traditional talent, people who didn't get 4-year computer science degree, but wanted to pursue careers in technology through software engineering or design and web development. And that's really was my introduction into recruiting because it was I was more candidate driven, and I was coaching people who maybe had, 3, 5, 7, 10 years of experience in another domain, but then went through an 18-week boot camp to be able to learn software engineering. So a lot of those people out similar to you, I still keep in touch with, and I help many of them get their first engineering jobs. But before transitioning away from dev boot camp and into recruiting, I just tried to avoid all the horror stories and all the poor candidate experiences that some of the people that I coach had. So that's what I rooted my recruiting expertise in, and how I've tried to hone my craft with, a real focus on like how do you make people feel when they go through the recruiting process.
Got it. Got it. Um, Hold on, let me. Yeah. So one of the things that just pop in my mind is, and again, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I think unfairly, recruiters are painted in a bad light at times, right? You know, I've of course had some bad experience, but I've had great experiences too. I've had good experiences, right? Um, and so the question I want to ask you, and it would delve into different parts of your background, how you end up coming from Jersey and then going to the Bay, and then obviously now you're swag surfing and throwing fire in I'm about to say Miami, in Hawaii. But give us a good context of what the average recruiter is going through. Just to kind of give us context, right? Like what is it like to be a typical recruiter right now post COVID? Um, we're what 2 years post COVID, I guess, or maybe more. Well, my timeline's messed up.
6, bro.
Like about 6, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, about 6. And I was trying to time it from like the end of COVID, so 2022 when
I
things
feel
started
you.
opening up. So 4 years. So now we're post COVID now. The AI boom is going real big, and you and I know AI and machine learning were already being discussed heavily in the Bay at that time when we were there, in 2016, 2019. Um, and then now obviously with the mass layoffs and things like that sort, and then slow employment. So give us what is it like to be a recruiter in this environment?
So happy you asked this specific question because I want to I want to share qualitative and some quantitative data. I recently reshared a post where the CEO of a company called GEM, his name is Stephen Bartel, I believe. But great product. I've used it before. It helps with sourcing. They have even an ATS product. They've embedded a lot of AI. But he posted this about a month ago. So this is why it's really good data to ground ourselves in. And looking at his post, I pulled it up here, but he said just based on the data they have in their database, job openings dropped from 12.1 million to 7.2 million recently. So that means less supply of jobs. And then you also have the layoffs that we've had in the past year. But recruiting teams also got cut by up to 14%. But the work didn't shrink and only exploded.
So hold on,
So
hold
I'm
on. So how much? What's the percentage of job listings dropping? And then you said it was also a reduction of 14% of recruiters, right? So what was that first
so
number again?
12 million to 7 million job openings. So
That's
that's
a 50.
almost a 50%. Yeah, yeah.
That's up 50%. Yeah.
And then the amount of staffing and resources that recruiting teams got cut by 14%. So yes, there might have been less jobs, but there's also less recruiting resources. And because there's less jobs, there's a high spike in the number of applicants. So recruiters are being asked to do what? More with less. So I think that is a simple way to empathize with both the recruiter and the candidate, right? Recruiters are asked to do more with less. For candidates, they're applying to more jobs and getting less interviews because there's less jobs available in the market. So that's a stark contrast. And then these companies are still, because we have the AI boom, there's this race to try to make the best AIification of whatever insert product service. So the executive and the management teams are saying like, hey, I need to hire yesterday. But they had even more data, and I had just like 2 or 3 bullet points I gleaned from the post. But they analyzed 165 million applicants across 1.2 million hires and more than 1,200 teams. So that's the data set we're looking at. And they said over the last year or so for that data set, hiring grew 8.3% year over year, but that's still 30% below the peaks that we saw in 2021. So
And here's the thing too.
go ahead.
That means that less than 1% of people who got hired out of that 165 million.
Pretty much. So that tell again, empathy. That tells you recruiters are seeing not only a lot more applicants, they're seeing a lot of AI fraud of people not being not who they say they are on their resume, or people just
Yeah,
using chat gpt and not
yeah,
being able to, and only just using the language that the AI spit out for you and not speaking in your own voice. So recruiters are handling 40% more roles, 93% more applications, and it takes 33% more interviews to make one hire. So again, recruiters are being asked to do more with less. The number of inbound applications are skyrocketing. And then there's a higher percentage of those inbound applications being AI frauds. People who either are not who they say they are, or just using language that is like, come on, I know GPT wrote this. Like, this doesn't even sound like you did this job. So
yeah.
that's the ecosystem we're working in. And yeah, that's why I'm highly employed and highly favored, because I kind of understand this a little bit, and yeah, I love doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm not laughing. I'm sure you're not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's kind of when you actually delve into the actual numbers, you're like, wow, this is nuts. And it's like some of those numbers we just, I think one of those numbers we discussed maybe before. Um, but like I like to kind of break it down, right? So if a recruiter, it took a recruiter 10 interviews or 10 different candidates to fill a role, now it's taken about 13. Well, actually 14 because there's no one third of a
Exactly.
person.
Exactly.
Um, so now it's taking them about give or take 14, right? So, and then I want you to gut check me here too. Depending on the role, there's probably going to be more applicants, right? So I'm hearing a lot of that AI in a lot of instances can code just as good if can I actually spoke to a hiring manager at Afrotech last year, and
Yeah.
um she said I'm straight. She's the engineering manager, but she said the um junior engineers, she's worried about them. She's like they're toast. That was her exact phrase. And I'm sorry to use that type of language, but that's what she told me. I'm not going to share her name or what company she works with.
Yeah.
And so I'm hearing that a lot with engineers. The guy, my former coworker, he was a um what you call it, QA engineer. He's been on the job hunt for a year. Um, and I'm also like seeing where, just in general, junior candidates or people who are fresh out of college are having the most trouble, right? Like when I went to Afrotech last year, I didn't actually go to the conference. I went to a lot of side events, but most of who I saw there were people fresh out of college, right? So I guess that leads me to my next question. Are you actually seeing that it's really harder for people who are engineers to land jobs now? Like is AI, is that what you're seeing with the conversations that you're having with other recruiters and through your happenings? Is that also what you're seeing?
Well, I hear two questions, and I want to address both of them. One is the difficulty that it that exists to land a job, whether you're a new grad, whether you're an engineer with experience. And again, we kind of even just addressed that with the numbers that we spoke about,
Right,
right?
right,
So yes, the numbers speak for themselves. There's way more applicants. It's a lot harder. It's a lot more competitive. And then there's a lot of AI fraud that unfortunately sucks up some time that um, recruiting teams need to be diligent and disciplined about. The other side of your question was around, like, are we cooked? Are engineers cooked when it comes to engineering and how AI is advancing? And I'm really excited about this question because That engineering manager is way more qualified to answer that than I am. However, I am a person like I'm a self-proclaimed nerd. I love to like learn about engineering and
Yeah.
science and astrophysics and like I read about that stuff in my downtime because I love science, math, engineering, etc. And there's a podcast, I believe it's called Syntax. And I had found a post, and this was an engineer with more than 10 years of experience. And he was talking about AI coding tools. I think he mentioned specifically Claude Code, but he was also mentioning some others. And he was saying that, yes, it is unfortunate that AI can do some of the things that maybe you would have hired an intern or an entry level candidate for.
Right. Right.
However, he also said that AI can also often be very delusional. So oftentimes an AI, and we've seen this with GPT, but it only wants to serve and get to the outcome you told it to get to. So he tested a lot of AI coding tools and he's like, there were instances where maybe he's building a feature or something and there's an edge case and the AI just completely skips doing tests, right? Typically, before you deploy some type of software, you want to do some type of test to make sure that it works. But oftentimes, the AI would be like, you know what? No, like, I'm just trying to get the outcome. I'm trying to get the feature to work. I'm going to ignore the test. So, AI will also ignore things that maybe a human would say, you know what? I see
Let's
that this
dig into
code
that.
ran, but I'm gonna go the extra mile and let me look at this edge case. So I like to separate it between the things that AI can do well right now and the things that it can't. And this is what I think is really good advice for whether you're an entry level person entering the market or you're a senior engineer, regardless of the discipline, etc. But you have it can analyze data, it can synthesize and summarize for you. It can do a really good job of like writing a first draft. So when I was the first recruiter at Wobot, I wrote all the job descriptions and I had to use my ability to build rapport and trust with the manager along with my own storytelling capabilities to write a good job description. Now, GPT can write a great first draft, but it isn't going to imagine a new story. So those are the so on the bottom you have those things, but on the top you have AI isn't going to imagine. AI isn't going to creatively problem solve. And I think or storytell. Like those three, your imagination, your creativity, your ability to tell a story that invokes a feeling that moves somebody to take an action, right? That's marketing, that's sales, that's leadership, right? All these things that, again, maybe 6 months from now, there'll be an AI that is a lot better at doing it. But again, AI is just going to remix things that we already have, data that we already have. It's going to remix what exists. It's not going to imagine something new.
Yeah. 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 And that's that last point you made, X. She talks about it a lot. She calls it she says AI is a parrot, and she broke down how um ChatGPT, these AI models are basically doing math, right? And so what they lack is storytelling. Um, that human touch. Maybe quantum would get better at that. I don't know. But yeah. And one of the things that and it's cool. I'm talking to you as a person who went through two unemployment periods, right, over the past 2 years. I was unemployed for 9 months, and then the previous company I was at, I'm at a new company now. Um, I had job lapse of 2.5 months. One of the shortest job lapses I ever had, but it was also the hardest. Because what I saw was, we have what 4 or 5 generations of people going after the same job, right? Um, it was harder that 2.5 period of being unemployed last year, 2025 was like the hardest like uh unemployment period I had ever experienced. And it wasn't like when I graduated college. Like graduating college, this is in 2010. I'm dating myself, people, but that job search was way easier than the 2.5 month period that I had, and obviously the 9 month period of joblessness that I had as well. Um, and so one of the things that I found that helped me through those job searches was like,
Mhm.
sticking to my daily routine of working out, obviously trying to eat good, changing my energy, just trying to be as positive as possible. Um, and getting rid of my ego. Like I remember talking to a hiring manager, and her exact phrase was like, "Hey, why do you want this job? Like I don't think you're gonna like it." It was like a BDR role or something like that. And I've done full sales, right? So I've done all the way up to enterprise, right? And she goes, and I'm like, "Hey, I literally made myself a human." I say, "Look, right now it's not a time for me to be leading with my ego, you know." In not so many words, I basically say I need to get paid. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so, what are you? I say all that to say, what are like some top 3 things or top 5 things that you'll tell people who are going through a job search right now? What are some tactical things that they can do to put themselves into that top 1% or less than 1%? Right? Going back to that stat, you said there was 165 applicants and only 1.2 million people um, got hired, right? So, what are some things that people can do to put themselves in that top 1%? Documents in, decisions out. Go to doculingo.com/trap talks 2040 to get your 14-day free trial. And don't forget to sign up for our Patreon page. We out.
Well, one half of it is what you just spoke about, is focusing on what you can control and navigating and doing things that support your energy, right? Because being on the job search, especially when you putting forth the effort, um, and maybe doing all the tactical things, which I'll cover that half next. Um, but it's emotional labor. It weighs on you emotionally. So with that being said, prepare yourself and know that, hey, you will face rejection. So what are habits that I can do and habits that I can have daily, weekly, etc., that's going to raise my energy? So I think working out is a simple one. And again, you don't have to be bodybuilding, but do something that makes you sweat. Even if it's like I'm gonna just get up and walk for 30 minutes. And if it's too cold where you are and there's a winter, how can I go to a gym, walk on a treadmill for like break a sweat? Because there's a ton of science that I don't need to share here. And there's a ton of research that says our mental health is connected to our physical well-being.
Yeah, and you're
So
talking
if
about
you
the release of endorphins and
precisely
serotonin, I think is another one, right? I know definitely
oxytocin,
endorphin,
all of
oxy,
those
yeah,
things,
all those, yeah.
all those good hormones. And that comes from being active, but also watching what you put inside your vessels.
Consume, yeah.
And that's not only what you eat, but also media. What are you consuming on a daily basis? So one of the things that I do, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes, is I open a book and read. Like I'm old fashioned. And I notice that I feel energized because I feel like I have knowledge and wisdom flowing through me. But again, that's from my own experimentation, my own self awareness. Somebody else might say, "Hey, Anthony, I got severe ADHD. I can't sit still." Okay, cool. Can you paint? Can you uh, listen to some music or make some music? Like whatever that's gonna get your creative juices flowing. Be honest with yourself and figure out what that is. I know for me during the pandemic, man, did you know that I tried to learn how to skateboard? And I
Nah,
was
I
like,
didn't
what
know
am
that.
I doing, bro? Like, I'm 30 out here trying to skateboard. Like, I did it for like 3 whole days, bro. And I was like, I'm not Tony Hawk. This isn't for but at the end of the day, I had the humility to be like, you know what? I'm stuck in the house. I want to try something new. I did it. I didn't like it. And then I said, what am I really after? I'm after something that I can do in my leisure to have fun, to give me energy. And I just started playing basketball again because that's like my first love. So, and I remember one of the, you reframe my belief system. I remember there was a time when me and you were at the basketball court and it was not too far from my house. And you were talking about investment philosophies. And I was like, oh, like I'd never heard any really other than Warren Buffett who says like invest in things you understand. But you were like, hey,
Mhm.
this is my investment philosophy. And I focus on these two or three things. And that dictates how I move and how I invest. And I was like, oh, snap. But that came from like, hey, what energizes me? Oh, speaking to smart people like Corey, basketball. So we were on the basketball court having this conversation. And like, that's just something that I remember and I never forget what you told me. Like you gave me some real investment game, but it was
Appreciate
through me being intentional about connecting with you, doing an activity that I cared about. So yeah, Lauren Hill, right? How you gonna win if you ain't right within? So get right within, consume food and consume media that's gonna get your mind right. And then have those habits that is gonna help you sustain your energy. So that's one half. Do you wanna pause and then maybe I'll go to the second half?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember that day I think was it MacArthur Park? I know it was, like, North Oakland.
It
It was,
was
like, North.
right up like I lived on a hill and it was right up the hill and
Yeah.
it was like yellow and blue. Like Steph Curry, I think, sponsored
Mhm.
that basketball court. So it was just a
Yeah.
community court right up the
Yeah,
street.
because I was out there where Mike was chirping around. That was the first time seeing Mike ball and stuff. He he I was
Mike
like,
can
"Yeah,
hoop, bro.
yeah, he really can. He really can."
He can hoop. I've learned
And he
firsthand.
a little off tangent, but, it's funny because I started he came out west and his dad didn't want me to move here. And so when his dad made the decision to when Mike made the decision to move here, his dad calls me, and in not so many words, he didn't say it directly. He's like basically I hung up the phone. I'm like, what does he want? What does his dad want from me? And I'm like, he wants me to watch over Mike, but he didn't come out and ask me. He's like older black men, just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I oddly thought he was checking up on me, but he was just like, watch my son, but he didn't say that. and and Mike would do these laughs, and it was almost like somebody had superposed his dad's face onto him, and I'm like, "Dude, you laugh just like your dad." It was crazy, man. He's like a split image of his dad. Very charismatic, just like his pops. But yeah, all that's good. I think that's a really good backdrop because you know you got to get your mind right. You know what I'm saying? Because if the person handling the tools isn't right, then whatever they create, the fruits of their labor is going to be as such. You know what I mean? So I think that's self-explanatory. I don't see a lot of people, and most of the time I see people who are talking about their job search, they're not talking about their routine, right? They're just talking about I'm going broke. It's very like it was like a time where I had to stop looking at social media because it was just like very kind of like
That
it
part
was like
too.
bringing bringing me down. I'm like, gosh, you know what I'm saying? And then it also, but it was like when I lived in the Tenderloin, and the Tenderloin, very drug infested area, a lot of drug addicts and homeless people, walking out, going to my job at Yelp and walking through. And it was a constant reminder of how blessed and thankful I am for the opportunity that I have, but also how just that quick dose can be turned away. And so I literally had to do that within myself when I would see these posts on social media, people talking about some, I've been out of work for 2 years, 3 years, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know how that is. Cause I'm like, and it solidified me in like, the blessings that I have. Right. Um, but yeah, man. So let's break down the second part of that because I think the second part is the more tactical stuff that you're going to
Mhm.
get to with in regards to your resume. Um, and I guess if you want, we can talk about how you should interview. Don't really want to spend too much time on it, but it's up to
Yeah.
you. Like, what are those other real tactical things in the job search people can do?
Yeah, one that I think aligns with the get your energy and your mindset right, but also can help you on the job search is reading. And and that's a crazy one because in high school, I thought I didn't like to read. Like the education system had me in a place where I believed I didn't like to read. Um, but I just didn't want to read Huckleberry Finn and Wuthering Heights. Like I wasn't like those stories didn't resonate with me. So I
It
had
was
to,
what you
it's
it
like,
was it was it was what you was reading you didn't want to read.
exactly. But through college and through adulthood, after graduating college, I started to discover the things that really fascinate me, really capture my interest. So I think you need to be reading things that, again, get you excited, that you want to learn about, but then also be reading about what's happening in the industry or the field that you're trying to go into. Um, and like an example for me is I'm reading this book right here. It's called Built for People. But there's a company that I'm interviewing with, and the COO of that company wrote this book. And I discovered it totally by serendipity. Like I was just on a site that I use, and they do like some free webinars and stuff. So I was like, I just wanted to learn something. It was just a Saturday, I'm chilling on YouTube watching some stuff, and I come by a webinar that the author of this book did, and I'm like, oh, I recognize the name of that company. I'm interviewing with that company. Um, so in my interviews, I ended up mentioning the book and mentioning some of the tidbits and some of the philosophies that I align with. And how that, so you can't tell me that didn't help me in my interview process. And that was pure serendipity. Or was it? Like what you seek is seeking you. So I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm trying to be prepared. And by happenstance, I just happened to discover a book written by an executive at the company I'm interviewing for. So if you know what discipline you're focused on, engineering, product, recruiting, operations, sales, marketing, whatever, start reading things and consuming content by the people in the niche that you're focused on. Because then when you come into an interview, all of that information is just in your subconscious. And you be like, oh, Corey, well, I just read this study on enterprise BDRs or whatever. And now me and you are having alignment, and I've demonstrated to you that I'm an active learner and I have a growth mindset and that I'm learning about new things.
Hmm.
So that's the first one. Read, one for energy and for curiosity, but also for let me know and be informed about what's happening in my space. The second one is you need to be building a brand. You need to be building some type of brand. Um, I feel like this is still an area for continual opportunity for growth for me, but there's blog posts that I wrote back at Dev Bootcamp that wrote at Wobot that people still see and reach out to me about, because they were
Mm,
timeless things where I was speaking about maybe culture, or maybe I was speaking about a broken hiring process. And a lot of the stuff is still timeless. So build
mhm,
a brand and figure out which medium works for you. So if you don't feel comfortable on camera, maybe write a blog post, start a Substack. Or maybe you say, "Hey, I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone, and I am gonna do some videos." Um, but build a brand and talk about the things that you're learning. Because for a long time, I didn't start a YouTube channel because I was like, "What should I talk about?" Like, talk about what you're learning. Like, tell your story. Talk about, and that's exactly why, I took the opportunity to have a conversation with you because it's like, like I remember I reached out to you. I was like, "Hey, what are we gonna talk about?" And I'm like, in my mind, just tell the story. Speak to who you are. Speak to what you're learning. So read, build a brand, pay attention to the problems that people have, and build solutions. So a good example of this is before I was in tech, I worked at one of the few black owned and black operated banks in the New Jersey tri-state area. And I started as a bank teller and I went all the way up to like a senior associate while I was doing financial analysis and working on wealth management and all these different things. But one of the things that I did in that job that prepared me for the next job was I hosted a paint night for employees. And I did this I'm just a natural connector. But I would talk to people and I was like, damn, like, wouldn't it be cool if we had, something after work to just connect with each other? And again, I had the relationships with people in the bank and I just kept asking them this, like, hey, like, wouldn't it be cool if we did something like this? But then I was able to talk to 20 or so people, bring the data to my manager and say, hey, I've talked to 20 plus people that said, like, if we hosted this paint night, like people would not only enjoy it, but would attend. And then it gets better because I partnered with like a local black owned business to host it. But like that wasn't in my job description. That was me honoring who I am, connecting with people, and then saying, like, damn, like this seems like a problem to be solved.
Mhm.
But then when I transitioned to being a career coach at Dev Bootcamp, one of the things that we did was we had alumni talks. So we would bring alumni from the program who were currently software engineers, and they would give like a 30 or 40-minute lightning talk. And they would talk about their job search. They would talk about their struggles. They would talk about what the day-to-day experience of an engineer is like. So I used everything I learned hosting that paint night to then catalyze and build a network of alumni that wanted to come back and speak. And then some people ended up connecting with those alumni and getting jobs. Or some of them might not have gotten jobs, but some of them saw Corey speak and they're like, oh, wow, like I really resonate with your story, bro. I'm really struggling right now. Like, and the fact that you went through this 2-month period, this 9-month period, like, cool. Like, you look like me. Cool. Like, it's possible. You know what I mean? We
Mhm.
need to see stuff sometimes to believe it. So read, build a brand, pay attention to problems, and like try to, if you see a problem and you're like, damn, like I think somebody should address this, try to address it. And you got to do that by staying present. You can only discover possibilities by staying present. And I think a
Right.
last one is go out and meet people. People always say your network is your net worth, but a lot of people network with the idea of trying to get something from people. You got to network and be of service. So that means being present. Hey, if I meet Corey and I'm listening to him, how can I be of service? And that might be, and a lot of people might say, I don't feel like I got a lot to offer. First of all, that's a limiting belief. And you need to watch your language and how you talk about yourself.
Yeah.
But secondly, it could be something as small as, hey, Corey, I read this article, and it aligns with what we spoke about. I think it would be interesting. And then, like, that's how relationships are built. And there's a really
Mhm.
good book I'm reading um, right now as well. It's called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. Um, how to
I like
build
these
big
names.
relation, right? How to build big relationships with small gatherings. So the author of this book, again, Similar thing. He moved to a new state because his wife got a job there. They moved to the state for her job and because she had family in the state. But for him, he didn't have any network. He didn't have any friends, any family. And then he would network and go to events, but then he's an introvert. So he would just kind of circle the outside of the event and feel awkward and not really speak to people. So what did he do? He said, instead of going to these events and feeling like I don't belong here or feeling like I don't feel comfortable networking, how about I step outside of my comfort zone and host my own event?
Mm,
And through hosting hundreds of events, literally over the course of a matter of years, he found new friends, he found job opportunities, and then he started to teach other people how to host events. And then after it worked so well with other people, he put the model into a book. So, like, there's problems everywhere. We just need to pay attention and have the humility to be like, damn, like I'm complaining about this problem. How about I solve it?
mhm,
So, yeah, read, build a brand. I would suggest YouTube heavily or write, pay attention to problems, and try to be solution oriented and then go out and meet people. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, really step outside of your own comfort zone and host an event because you
mhm.
you gain a certain gravitas and respect by
Yeah,
hosting your own event, and people start to gravitate towards you.
yeah. And it hosting events, I've done it a lot. And I remember one time when I used to host events around blockchain. And like this is like one of my biggest fears. It's like you're hosting an event, you're talking, and then someone calls you out because either you lied or you didn't know the information, right? And I was talking about a particular blockchain that I was pretty well versed of because I would basically do what's called SWOT analysis on different blockchains, like why developers are using it, what the plus and minuses. And so I'm talking about this particular blockchain, and this guy comes to my event and he basically is listening. He's like really kind of like going at me like this and that, and I stopped what I was doing. I said, "Hey, you can present if you know have something to add." I'm like, kind of obvious. You know a lot about it in front of everybody, but I did it in a way that was very much so like I wasn't trying to put him on. I was really like, cool, let's have a conversation because kind of obvious you know a lot about this more than me. I
Hmm.
studied this blockchain for about a week, but I had been doing it for about 6 months or so. So once you know in the industry, you start to see the patterns, right? Um, and then I remember the guy, so I would do my presentations for about 30 minutes and then have an hour of networking afterwards. The
Yeah.
guy left instantly after my presentation was done, right? He didn't stick around for the networking piece, right? And so, yeah, that does happen, but you also got to understand, like, you know, your energy is going to push people to you or away from you. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't get too caught up if you're doing your own events. Don't get too caught up in trying to appear to be perfect. It's more about the experience and who you're trying to attract or who's going to attract you. And there's some other
100%
things
agree.
that I want to add to that you mentioned. One of my like my secret weapons. Um, how I was able to part of the reason why I was able to get in Twilio, I got referred. But one of the things that I did, and nobody told me this, it's something just kind of makes sense. I started listening to their earnings calls. So I listened to about like two or three of their earnings calls. And through the process of listening to Twilio's earnings calls, because they're a public company, I thought Twilio cared a lot about SMS. I thought SMS was like, you know, their quote unquote flagship, which it was, but they'd never mentioned it on any of their calls, on their earnings calls,
Mm,
right? It's like it's like if you're and I haven't listened to a Nike earnings call, but imagine you listening to a Nike's earnings call and they never mentioned Jordan, right? And the reason why Twilio never mentioned SMS because that's their bread and butter. That doesn't excite investors. You know, you're not. But then they was talking about other products. I'm
mhm.
trying to think of the product they were talking about. It was I'm blanking on the name, but it basically was a virtual call center product. They would talk about that. on every earnings call that I listen to, and I listen to about 3. They last for about an hour. You actually learn more on the earnings call through the Q&A versus the presentation, because the analysts who work for these big firms like BlackRock and whoever's invested in these public companies, they're asking more hard nosed type questions. You can actually tell by their tone whether they feel good about the company or not. And so in my interviews, I didn't mention SMS. The only time I mentioned SMS and was like, yeah, I built my first app in college on SMS, so I understood how it worked. But I talked more about the call centers, and I started using language as if I was the CEO, right? Because you have the CEO where the strategic objective comes from,
Yeah,
and then every leader down is basically repeating or regurgitating the CEO's top perspectives, but for their department,
for their
right?
function.
So that's
Yep.
so that's a very like strong weapon I think people should use, is listening to the earnings call. And then with AI now, it takes it to a whole nother level, because and again, don't have AI do all your work, right? Like, listen to the earnings calls, and then if you can download the transcript or get your hands on it, upload it to ChatGPT, but then be very specific about questions that you're listening to, right? Like, sometimes on an earnings call, there may be like 5 minute segment, and I may just listen to that 5 minute segment for like 30 minutes straight, because that information was like, whoa, this kind of like blew the top off.
Hmm.
And then I'll still put it in ChatGPT, and then run through it there. Um, I think I don't think a lot of people do enough of that, listening to earnings calls, because they're literally telling you what they need.
Yeah.
And if
Well, that's
so
definitely something you got in your arsenal for public companies for sure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
even to your point, even if a company isn't public, a lot of startups or other companies that haven't IPO'd yet, they still have content. They have white papers. They have content out there. And
Mhm.
again, back to my first bullet point, read, educate yourself. I had an interview today with a mental healthcare tech company. Um, and yeah, before the guy told me about the company, he asked me to tell him about the company. He was like, hey, like tell me what you know about what we do. Um, and it was so when you prepare, I think research can be very overwhelming. And what I like to do and what I did in this scenario was I talked about what made them different from their competitors. So I was like, hey, you guys are a three-sided marketplace. Hey, you guys offer virtual and in-person therapy. You guys handle a lot of the administration for therapists so that they can focus less on admin and more on delivering therapy. And then you also make it easier, or they make it easier for insurers to easily bill, reimburse, all these things. Um, so yeah, that was surprise. Like I had that prepared and I had read all that research, but I was surprised that he just kind of opened it. And he was like, yeah, like actually that's a pretty good pitch for like what we do. And again, I know what the expectations are of this job. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I know he's going to ask me to be educated on what the company does. And that's an immediate red flag if I'm a recruiter or a hiring manager. Because if you haven't done the due diligence to learn about my product, my mission, my service, yeah, like that can be an easy disqualifier because it don't take much to prepare and it's within your
especially not
control.
now. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Like, even with the job I got now, and I did my interview with my we did a role play in sales, and sales is all big on role play. So we did this role
Yep.
play, and I'm looking straight at him, and this all virtual. And after the role play, he's like, "Wow, you wasn't even reading off a paper." I'm like, "What?" To me, that was it was it was funny, because I'm like, wow, people are really reading off a paper for a role play. And I think I asked him something or whatever, but I went to ChatGPT, I did my research outside of ChatGPT, what the company did and food ordering software and stuff like that. And then I put it inside of ChatGPT. I said, give me the SWOT analysis. Why would someone use this over that? And
Mm,
then I kept rereading. So a lot of times when I create my prompts and get my responses to ChatGPT, I'll go through a period of not asking it more questions. I'll just go in because at a certain point you have too much information. Then at the point, you tend to be more dangerous with fewer weapons and becoming more of a specialist with that information. So I literally went through and just kept rereading it. Okay, this is why it's different from these. Okay, boom, bam. If they say this, and then I started doing mental boxing in my head, like, well, what if the client says this, and I'm gonna say that. Oh well, if they say this, they're probably not a good fit for us because we need to be very specific about our persona, right?
yeah. And that could
So
be
so
a
yeah.
whole other podcast episode. Like, how do you prepare? And because the one half is the preparation, the other half is being present
Mhm.
and like really being present so that you can listen to the question, ask a clarifying question if you need to. Um, you should always be prepared with questions of your own. Again, like, yeah, that could be a whole other
Yeah.
episode, man, because
And
you
I
just
like
broke
yeah,
it down in a
and
real
the thing
way.
about me, and I do this, and so the way I interview at companies is the way I sell. So I actually am not afraid, and I actually prefer walking away from customers who don't fit or clients who don't fit the persona we're trying to target. I'm not the
Yeah.
type that will try to fit uh what they call it, a round head in a square hole. You know what I'm saying? Like some things just don't fit. Um and so I like to ask questions where I already know the answer. Where these are a question I may ask just to show you that I did my research, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times, I think questions can be very powerful. I'll say that in the way you present them, especially if you do your research. Um, and I like to, like I said, when I interviewed for public companies, I might ask them a question that I heard on the earnings call because I'm also
Mm,
saying like, did you listen to the earnings call?
yeah.
And then
How
also
how
too,
in
that
alignment are you with everything that's going on?
exactly, exactly, and these companies know they're not expecting you to know their company like them because it's their 9 to 5 now. You're trying to get on with them, right? And so you also got to understand, like, you got to make sure you're showing that you're a specialist in what you do, right? So I'm Reddit sales, right? So at the end of the day, in these interviews, I'm leaning on that. I'm leaning on that, but then I'm creating my own Venn diagram with the information I'm getting from these public resources about the company, so, um, but
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
now is a better time than ever to also, um, like what I was saying about being solution oriented, trying to find problems, like because I know when I coach people, a lot of people's whether they were new grads or not, a lot of people's challenge and limiting belief is like, I don't have the experience. And it's like, cool. Well, imagine they were going to hire you tomorrow. And all they said was, hey, Corey, we'll give you the job offer. It'll be on your desk Friday. Just put together a little project for us on what it would be like to work with you, or put together a little presentation. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And especially with like one tool that I love to use is Gamma. I'm sure you've probably used that before, Corey, but you can build standalone landing pages. You can build a presentation. So, like before, where you would have had to use Google Slides and start from scratch,
Right.
you can type in a prompt and say, hey, uh, create a 3-page deck that speaks to how I would be a perfect fit for this role. And I know that there's a VP of talent, guy named Jim Miller at a company named Ashby. They're an applicant tracking system, an
Mhm.
ATS. So the
I seen them
ATS
a lot.
is
They were the
yeah,
ones main yeah.
I love their work. I love the product. I've used the product. I was even on their podcast as well, but I was networking. I watched an episode of the podcast with the VP of talent. I was like, "Hey, I love the way you think about this specific problem. This was really interesting. Would love to connect." Me and him end up connecting, and he told me that to get that job, he basically did what I just said. He did his research and targeted a specific set of companies and said, "Here's the job description I want to have at your company. Here's why I think it would be valuable for your company. Um, and if you're interested in that, maybe we should have a conversation." But they didn't
Mhm.
have a VP of talent role open. So that's another thing. Like there's jobs and maybe problems that companies might not advertise. There's a bunch of hidden jobs that, again, might not make it to the job board. But if you do your research, again, research is something that AI can save you a lot of time on. Um, you could be reaching out and saying, "Hey, I see your company is this size. I see, you might have some challenges over here based on this blog post I read. Here's a 2-page deck on how I think I could solve that for you."
Mm.
And you would have to be an incompetent leader and an incompetent recruiter to at least not reply to that message. You might not interview the person, you might not hire them, but I want somebody who reaches out to me and say, "Hey, I see you have this specific problem. I'm not trying to sell you, but here's how it would solve it." And if that sounds interesting, maybe we should have a conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, that's someone who's very assured of himself too. And that's the other thing, right? I think it goes back to your views like, hey Corey, I'm gonna pause on the self-work and then we're gonna talk about more tactical things. He also did a lot of stuff, I feel like eternally, that he built himself up to be able to pull something off like that. Because that's cold outreach. I love doing that. I've gotten some of my
Yeah,
best opportunities and met some of the, you know, coolest people, like just reaching out to them cold.
yeah.
So
But again,
yeah.
that's a fear. That's a limiting belief. And again, I get it. I mean, me and you are different. You're in sales, I'm in recruiting. Both of them are sales to an extent, and we deal with a lot of rejection. So we realize, hey, everybody who you reach out to ain't gonna reply, and some people might even be mad at you, like leave me the
Hmm.
hell alone. Like, but that
Yeah.
just means it's a numbers game. You got to put yourself out there, and the more opportunities you put yourself out there for, the more you'll have people responding to you more positively. And through that process, you start to learn, oh, what are the kind of messages that resonate with people? Oh, if I say this instead of that, people will actually respond to me. Oh, instead of just like, because everybody, depending on their role, gets a lot of cold outreach with somebody trying to sell them something.
Tell us
But
something.
if I
Yeah.
say, "Hey," and I know you, I'm forgetting the sister's name, but she's a big diversity officer. But I remember you were on a podcast or had a conversation with her.
You talking about Rachel?
I think so, but you had done all your research and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is what I'm asking for. I'm asking for 15, 20 minutes of your time, but here's why I think the conversation would be worth your time." And in your conversation, she brought that up. She was like, "Hey, I get a ton of cold outreach." And
Hmm.
Corey was prepared with his questions, with what he wanted. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to give this brother the time of day."
Yeah. And the funny thing about Rachel is, so and people can watch this, and maybe I'll post that snippet of the interview here. But
Yeah.
um, basically, Wayne Sutton, I interviewed Wayne Sutton too. He had a conference going on, and I interviewed all the speakers. And so, in data science, we call it self selection. And so, I felt that since they're speaking on tech inclusion, they should be willing to help a brother out, right? Um, and we ended up meeting. I ended up meeting with Rachel, and she chewed me
Hmm.
out. She made me actually feel like this, but I didn't take it personal because I had already prepared in my mind that I'm moving from North Carolina coming to the West. It's gonna be I expected it to be hard. If it was gonna be easy, I didn't expect it to be easy. So I had already told
Yeah,
myself, like, yeah, it's gonna be one of the hardest things, it's like walking in the darkness, you know. And one of the things she said, she's like, we don't take paper. Because I had a paper resume, so East Coast. But I had already had my resume in Dropbox. She's like, we don't do paper, you know. We send it to me electronically. The other thing she chewed me out, and this is probably when I started realizing the importance of listening to earnings calls, but I didn't really start implementing that until probably about 2 or 3 years later. She's like,
yeah,
"Did you know that the CEO of Yelp and the CEO of Google are beefing?" I'm like, "Nah." And then I went through that rabbit hole of freaking that out, right? Because Google placed more priority over its properties versus everybody else, right? Um, and so yeah, that was minute I left the building, I sent her my resume and she told me she felt bad because she's like, you was already prepared. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is it. Just you just need it electronically. But yeah, and the last point, and then I want to move on to what was that light bulb moment for you to move from Jersey to the Bay. But like when you're reaching out to people cold, me personally, I don't want or expect people to respond. I actually prefer, 1 out of 10, if that, to respond. Because if this is not a perfect match, I don't there's no need for us to interact. And you got to figure out what are they gaining from it because when you're helping people or people are helping you, it's not always monetary. It could be as
yeah,
simple as like, wow, somebody helped me in my career and I'm giving back. Or it could be like they see something in you that you don't really see and they're like, man, I know this brother's gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? Or this sister's gonna make it. I just wanna, be a part of that. Um, and the thing about the Bay Area that I miss, what it people and one of my close friends said this. He said that the thing about the tech scene in the Bay at that time, people people wanted to be able to say like, yeah, I helped this founder do this, or I helped this person do this, and then 5 years later.
mm,
Um, and it brings me to another point, but Lisa Ray did an interview. She said this multiple times. She said, network horizontally, not vertically, right? So stop trying to meet, the people on the proverbial top. Like, network the people at your level. Like the people that I met, like in 2019, 2018, some of them are doing like really big stuff. And now they're a big dog, and I still got a relationship with them. You know what I'm saying? So I can reach out to him and be like, hey man, let's do an interview because it's all genuine. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, man, I'm glad you brought that up. So I want to go into like, what was that light bulb moment when you decided like I'm gonna leave this banking job and go to the Bay? Like, what? Just talk about that light bulb moment. Like, what happened, and what was like, I need to get out of here.
yeah. Well, there's 2 things that led to it. One was just a feeling in my heart, my soul, my gut that this job, although it was paying my bills, wasn't what I was meant to do and really wasn't giving me life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was that. So a lot of times I think I heard somebody say, like, the problem with achieving our goals oftentimes isn't like making the actual progress, it's admitting what we want and being able to step into that. So I worked in banking for 4.5, almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, yeah, I would arguably that whole time I was like always experimenting, had a little side hustle because I was like, this can't be life. Like there has to be greater for me. And that was just a feeling. Like that was a like we all have these intuitions or these feelings about like, I want to do something that makes me feel alive. I want to do something that energizes me, that makes a difference, where I can help people, but also I can be creative. Like, so I felt that, but it took kind of 5 years of experimentation, failure, networking before the aha moment of actually moving to the Bay happened. Um, and it happened the way it was supposed to happen. I worked at this CMB, this black owned, black operated bank I mentioned. And I actually left that bank to go work for Bank of America because I said, I want to make more money. More money is going to make me happy. And then I made like twice as much money and I was twice as miserable.
Mm.
And that was I'm so happy for that experience because I left, got that experience, and it was like a 1 year contract. And I think they ended the contract early. So not only did I leave, I made more money, I was more miserable, and then they gave me the boot. Like they ended the contract in like 9 months. So then I had to like crawl back into the job market. I was applying for some stuff, but I ended up going back to the bank that I left. And I remember the CEO at the time asking me if I ever heard of the story of the prodigal son. And again, he kind of chewed me out because he was like, "Yeah, when you left, you didn't even accept a counter offer or entertain a counter." And I was like, "Hey, like I needed to grow. I needed to, leave to find myself in some ways." Went back, worked there for another year, but in that year, I discovered the Social Innovation Fellowship through Starting Block. So that's a 5-day leadership program where imagine you got a room of 100 people, like-minded people like me and you in a room for 5 days and talked about building profitable and socially impactful businesses. That was Starting Block.
Mhm.
But again, back to the advice I gave earlier, which is be of service. I did Starting Block. I left with this like aha moment of like, okay, what I was feeling in my heart and my intuition wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Because I went into that program and I saw evidence of people doing meaningful work, getting paid, whether they were solopreneurs or entrepreneurs at bigger companies. So then I was like, okay, the feeling I was validated. The feeling that I'm feeling in my heart of hearts and my soul is true. Okay, now what are we going to do about it? So then started to research and try to find jobs. But it was only through service that I found the Dev Bootcamp job because Starting Block, you can always go back and apply to be a volunteer or apply to be a mentor. And that's how they kept the community sustainable. So I applied to be a volunteer, went back literally the year after. So I did it in August 2015. August 2016, I went back to the institute that I completed. I was a volunteer, ended up meeting a woman named Cameron. She introduced me to the Dev Bootcamp job. Not only did it's a little bit of a tangent, but not quite, but I got the interview. I made it all the way to the final round, Corey, and then I got rejected.
Mm.
But it gets better because I had it on my heart that this was the opportunity for me so much. I started to write a resignation letter. But it gets worse. I left the resignation letter on my desk and my manager saw it. So think about my emotional state. I just lost this job that I'm like, this was my way out. This was my dream job. I write the resignation letter thinking I'm going to get the job. My manager sees the resignation letter. Mary Hawkins, I remember her name. And she pulled me aside and she did me the biggest solid because she was like, I saw the letter. All I ask is that if you do get something else, I realize you're an ambitious young man and this may not be your dream job. But all I ask is that if you get another job, I'm the first one to know and you give me a heads up. And she was like, okay, and go like she didn't try to make me feel bad about it. She didn't, but she addressed it in a way that said, like, I'm concerned seeing this, but I also realize you want to grow and maybe this role isn't the best fit for you. But while you're here, you're going to do the best job possible. And if you decide to leave, I better be the first one to know. 2 weeks later, But then 2 weeks later, Dev Boot Camp called me back. They said somebody on our team quit. You were our second runner up. If we could have hired two people, we would have hired you. And I end up doing like a final interview with the director of the San Francisco campus, and they end up hiring me. And then my teammate ended up being somebody who got hired instead of me. And that could have been a whole ego trip. Like, oh, like, I'm going to show you. Like, no, because I come from a place of curiosity and service.
Right.
Sar, her name was. She went on to work at Slack afterwards. But I learned so much about coaching and about leadership from her that I wouldn't have if I was in my ego, like, oh, I'm going to show you. They should have hired me instead of you. Like, you know what I mean? So we got to be careful with these beliefs. And that was the catalyst and kind of the whole arc, emotional journey of going from New Jersey to California.
Wow. Yeah, that's funny. Resignation letter. But it goes back to what we were talking about, man, earlier was for you is for you. Um, like I don't know how to follow up with that, but I think
What
since
is
we
for
talking about
you is
life
for you.
transitions, so you in the Bay, COVID happened. At this time, I don't know where anybody is. And I remember me, you and Fred started doing our talks just to get our mental health in order. And then, I look up a couple months later and I see you throwing flames in Hawaii. So how did you get into like throwing flames and stuff? I was like, wow.
Well, I mean,
And were you
the
ever worried
transition.
about and then serious question too, were you ever worried about burning your hair too?
I mean, and I say that just from a place of confidence, practice, and preparation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like when I first started learning to do it, I wasn't, again, like, leave your ego at the door. Like, I wasn't
Hmm.
trying to be the biggest and the baddest. And when you bring your ego into stuff, that's when you get hurt. Like,
Yeah.
um, but the transition to Hawaii happened from uh 2021, coming here, coming on vacation. A good friend of mine who I worked with at Outco, she happened to be not only living here, but she had some family here. And I only knew that through like connecting with one of our mutual connections. And they were like, oh, you're going to Maui? You should connect with Lucy. Um, and yeah, Lucy, good friend of mine, she picked me up from the airport. She showed me around. She helped me rent a car through a mutual connection of hers. But it started with coming here and experience it. And again, it was just magical visiting. And then the last day I was here was when I really started thinking like, because at this point, this is like May 2021. So at this point, I've worked remotely for a full year at Wobot. So I've been at Wobot 2 years by now. So I've already kind of demonstrated A, I'm a high performer, and B, I can also be a high performer in a remote environment. Um, so what I did was work with my manager. Again, serendipity, like the universe is conspiring to help us. My manager happened to be married in Maui. So I didn't have to really sell her hard on it. I was like, hey, like, I really want to do this. She was like, yeah, take some time, think about it. And then let's bring it to the CEO. And the CEO at the time was more excited than I was. He was like, you ain't got no kids, no pets, man, move to Hawaii. I know you can do your job, but this goes back to building relationships with people, right? Because if I came in it with ego, with like, you know what I did for this company, you know how I built this whole company. Why can't I move to like? It was just a level of trust that I could do my job here. Um, and then last point I will say on moving here is that I I didn't wait too long and I didn't talk myself out of it. I came here in May of 2021, and by August of 2021, I had moved here.
Mm.
And that was because I had set my sight on it. And the day that I left Hawaii, I had this cardinal kind of come up on the window and kind of check me out on my side view mirror. And it was a beautiful moment. And I just remember it like it's yesterday. But I later told my mother about that story, and she started to kind of weep. She cried a little bit because my grandfather passed away in 2019, and my family's from Virginia. That's where I was born, and
Oh, okay.
the state bird of Virginia is a cardinal.
Uh,
And my
I
mom
think
said since my grandfather passed, like cardinals would visit her and my aunts,
mm,
and I felt like that was kind of the ignition. Like I had already made my mind up and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if I want to move here?" And I told my mom that story, and it felt like my grandfather was like, "Yo, I got you. Like divine timing. Like you're protected. Like trust yourself. Come out here."
mm. And it's funny because the cardinal, I'm looking this up, it's the state bird from my state where I grew up at. I was born in New York, but I grew up in North Carolina. It's
Okay.
the state bird for me. Yeah, I just
Hell
wanted to
yeah.
point that out. That's kind of crazy.
I didn't know it was that the same for North Carolina. Is it a red cardinal or is it a different
Yeah,
color? Okay.
red, northern cardinal. Yeah,
Got you. But
bright
yeah, it
red
was that
males.
whole experience, right? And all of this goes back to a theme from our conversation about being present. Like you
Hmm.
got to be present for things because you might miss opportunities. You might miss a blessing by not being present, by being on your phone, scrolling social media, scrolling the gram, as opposed to lift your head up. There might be a blessing. There might be a problem that you're uniquely positioned to solve, but you're not paying attention. You know what I mean? And I can only say that from a place of having these stories and having experienced some of these things, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, so I want to give people something too. Um, so
Talk to me.
AI is like real big now. AI this, AI that, and like I just been researching like what are the top issues these AI companies are facing, right? So like there's there's two distinct issues that I've seen with a lot of AI companies. So one is more technical, kind of cost related, and the other one is more go to marketing related. So I think the first one is I ain't gonna say which one is more important. I let whoever's listening decide, right? So a lot of these AI companies, right? Um when you look at venture capital, and when they're investing in startups, right? Most venture capital money goes to product development and advertising. Like I remember seeing something a few years ago when it was like most of the venture capital money in the startups has gone to Google, Facebook for buying ads, right? Um, and so with a lot of these AI companies, their costs are very unpredictable due to their creation and accumulation of data, right? Um, one of the like the favorite things that I've kind of researched that I found, GPU usage is spiky, but data is sticky, right? So, you know what a GPU is,
I'm familiar, but educate
but
myself and
yeah.
your
So
audience.
essentially, GPUs, and I'm just going to dumb it down. But effectively, they're computer chips where most of your, if not all of your AI processing goes through, right? Like, so whenever you're interacting with ChatGPT, the GPUs, pretty much NVIDIA is known for that. They have the best, well, they don't necessarily have the best chips on earth, but they're like up there. Um, Taiwan Semiconductor Company is the one who
AMD.
actually builds it. And then, yeah, AMD kind of low on the scale, but yeah, you get my point. Um,
Mhm.
And so whenever there's a lot of seasonality when we use apps, right? Like one of my close friends who tell me like, Uber and Lyft, or he worked at Uber. Um, Whatever happened in the holidays was their new peak or their new normal, right? So a lot of
Mm,
apps are very seasonal, right? Like people buy retail more on Friday and stuff, Cyber Monday more than any period of the year, but then it drops off, right? So what does
yeah,
that impact the tech stack, right? So again, to my first point or first thing I was saying, GPU usage is spiky. Boom, it goes up for these things, right? Trump says something, wow, all of a sudden everybody on Twitter now or Truth Media, boom, GPU
yeah,
usage goes up. Um, and so a lot of these AI companies have very unpredictable costs, right? So, which leads me to point number one. How can you, if you're out there interviewing for an AI company or a company that wants to use AI, how can you help them make their costs more predictable, right? Because the founder and the CEO is going to probably have to raise more money, right? And people investing in these companies, outside investors, want to see predictability in their balance sheet. They don't want to be like, hey, you asking us for 10 million, but then you're going to blow nine of it on just the technical piece. We need to put some money
yeah,
aside for go to marketing so we can track customers and all that good stuff, right?
yeah.
Um, but the opportunity in that is again what I mentioned, right? Data usage is very sticky, right? So then it kind of leads to another thing, right? Like, can you help the company better analyze that data? Right? Is there a way to lower costs for companies, right? Um, um, Egress is what they call it, where you got your data in the cloud and you're pulling it out to analyze it or consume it or whatever, right? Second point, which I kind of touched on, all these companies now saying I do AI this, AI that, and the problem is that a lot of these AI companies are led by who? Technical founders, technical CEOs. You know, do most technical CEOs know how to sell? Do they know how to
No,
market? No.
no,
So that's opportunity there too, right? So um my mind just works in a weird way. You mentioned like figuring out what are these problems that uh specific industry or areas having, right? So I just want to kind of lead people with that. Um and then let's go back into it. But the one thing that I really always was like really amazed at you about is like you had that calm, you had like that quiet calmness. It's almost like, you look at a tornado, you look at a hurricane, trying to think of somewhere else. All these storms, you look in the eye of the storm, it's always the calmest part. You know what I'm saying? And
yes,
everything around it just wild. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you're in a hurricane or a tornado and you're in the middle, ain't nothing happening to you. It's just when you leave the middle, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So where did you develop that skill of just being the quietness in the storm?
Hmm, that's interesting. I would love to like interview other people who know me well and understand their reflections of it. And I think therein lies part of the answer. I think I'm just very observant. I'm very curious. As I said, I'm a nerd. I'm fascinated by science and nature and all of these things. So yeah, I always like to my brother Joshua, he was the one that I kind of adopted this from, but seek to understand then be understood. So I'm always like listening, like, oh, like what is because I think that's how I ended up speaking on one of your platforms previously at the Tech Trap House, where again, it just came from conversations that me and you were having. And you were like, damn, like maybe you should come and talk about some of this stuff with the community. I'm hosting this event. So a lot of my calmness, I think, comes from again, this is a theme, but being present, being extremely present, paying attention, being curious, asking good questions. Um, and yeah, like I, I I feel like the outside is the eye of the storm, but the inside is the chaos. And there's a ton of docs I'm connecting or questions I'm thinking about or things that might be on my mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like on the outside, you might see the stoicism, but on the inside, man, yeah, my brain is a beautiful thing, man, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful to have an able body and an able mind because, yeah, man, I just love to learn. I love to learn, and that's when I look at my life, like that's taken me far. I love to
Right.
learn, and I love to help people. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
great question.
Was there anything else you wanna I appreciate that, man. Was there anything else you wanna touch on? Anything you wanna add more color to? I know
Uh,
we gotta head out, so
yeah, I think the last thing that I want to add more color to is I think I might have mentioned this book, but Inner Excellence. It's a time where you're catching me, and this is a big theme for me. I would like this isn't a product marketing thing. I don't get paid to promote the book. Um, but maybe consider reading the book. And if not, just consider, I would consider asking your audience to think about what inner excellence means to them, right? There's two parts in the book that really resonated with me. Actually, three, and I'll leave you with these last three. One of them was everything, every person, every circumstance that happens to me is here to teach me and to help me. It's all working for my good. And the life that you've been given has has been given to you. It's a gift. And it's been given you to prepare you for your own glory, to pursue your own purpose. But if you adopt that mantra, you can look at everything with curiosity, as opposed to that negative language around, woe, it's me. We talked about the dismal job numbers, right? Anthony said all these jobs and ain't nobody hiring. Like, no, there's also an opportunity to cultivate inner excellence. So everything that happens to you is an opportunity to teach you and to learn, and to help prepare you for whatever purpose you're here to serve. But you have to adopt that mantra. Two, the real skill that we need to develop is belief. How do you develop belief in yourself? How do you develop belief in the person you want to be, the feelings that you want to have, the dreams that you have for yourself? Like Jim Carrey gave a speech and he talked about like, I wish everybody could get everything that they wanted, all the money, all the fame, all the whatever, and realize that's not going to make them happy. And he speaks from his own experience, but don't chase, I want to get this goal because I think it's going to make me feel a certain way. How do you want to feel? And then start experimenting. Okay, what experiences, jobs, people's relationships are going to help me feel that way? And then the last is the problem isn't the problem. The problem is how you think about the problem. I love that. And more importantly, the emotional state that you enter in when you're thinking about the problem is the real problem. So a lot of
mm,
times the state that we enter when we're thinking about the job is a state of lack, a state of scarcity, a state of fear. And again, these are all real concerns. I'm not downplaying these at all for your audience. You need to pay your bills. You got maybe kids or parents or people you need to provide for. That's all real. But when you come from a state of lack, like the universe is like a radio and it works on a frequency. And if you didn't like what you were listening to on the radio, you wouldn't yell at the radio, like play better music. Like you would change the frequency. Oh, I don't want to listen to country. I want to listen to hip hop. I don't want to listen to hip hop. I want to listen to gospel. And it's the same thing with ourselves. So we talked a lot about energy, but the problem isn't the problem. The problem is how you're thinking about the problem and the emotional state you bring to the problem. So every problem in your life, you can look at it. Oh, okay. That problem, I'm coming from a place of anger, frustration. I'm coming from a place of fear. How would I approach this problem if I came at it from a place of playfulness, curiosity, right? Um, and I would say, fortunately, my natural state is just that. That's why you get the calm in the eye of the storm when you look at me, because that's yeah, I just love to learn. That's my curiosity. But yeah, the problem isn't the problem. The problem is how you think about it. Everything is here to teach you and to help you. And the skill that you need to develop is inner excellence and how to cultivate beliefs and also how to challenge your limiting beliefs about stuff. And again, it sounds oversimplified, but practice it for a year and watch how your life change.
Love it. Love it. Hey man, I think we can I ain't dropping my
And
mic
on
because
that,
I paid too much. I paid too much for it, but you know, I dropped my phone
I'll
because I
drop
got
mines for you. I'll drop mines for you.
I got the same one. I got the same one. I just
Oh,
ain't.
hell yeah. You got the Yeti?
Yeah, yeah. I got the Yeti.
Nice, nice, nice. Hey, man, it
Yeah,
was a
man.
pleasure,
Well,
bro. I love these
again, thanks for the
conversations.
time. Definitely stay on afterwards, but definitely thanks for the time. Um, again, y'all, this is Corey Stay Trapping with Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. My guy Anthony Holloway. I hope y'all like really take the time to really listen to what he has to say. Take those books and yeah, if you out there on your job search, me and him have been through it. He's going through it. So definitely, make sure I would say, the biggest thing I kind of took from you, Anthony, on this is like really fine tune your frequency, your mindset. It's real funny. You said, we don't yell at the radio. I have never seen anybody yell at the radio. But yeah, you're right.
Be like,
You're
that
right.
person's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we gonna head out. This has been man, this is great, man. It's great. So I flame throwing Anthony, man. We out of here.
She